Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the SERMAPod. This is the podcast for the Sports and Entertainment Risk Management Alliance. I am the founder and CEO of SERMA, Rich Lenkov, and I am also mostly the host of the SERMAPod. Although any of you listening and watching, we'd love you to help host an episode, so let us know. We are well past our 100th podcast, and we are going strong. We release these every 2 weeks, and we are incredibly fortunate to have a really special guest today. Justin Smulison is the business content manager at RIMS, which is the Risk and Insurance Management Society. He is also the host of the RIMScast, which is an incredible podcast that has all of the foremost leaders in risk management all over the world on. He'll tell us how many episodes, but I know there's been a ton, incredibly great content. I was fortunate enough to be a guest on a recent RIMScast that's available on our social media. So Justin, welcome to the SERMAPod.
Thank you, Rich, and congratulations on 100 episodes. I know what a big deal that is.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a lot of fun, and our listeners and viewers probably know many of them are members of SERMA. They probably know that we have been fortunate enough to partner with RIMS since we started about 5 years ago. On many occasions, we've done a lot of events with local RIMS chapters like DFW here in Chicago, where I am, LA, New York. So great partner. I personally, in my practice, having been, working in risk management here, representing lots of clients for almost 30 years. I have worked with RIMS, obviously, over many years and attend Risk World every year and have forever. And it's a great organization. You have to be involved with RIMS if you're in this industry. So again, welcome and excited to talk.
Thank you so much. It is a pleasure to be here on the SERMAPod. And yeah, we're going to talk podcasting, right?
We're going to talk podcasting and sort of how it's evolved and why it is so important to what we both do and how, the message that we are getting out is resonating and why it's a great medium. So let's just start there. How did the RIMScast start? How long have you been involved and why did it begin?
Sure thing. So I was hired in August of 2017 here at RIMS, and I was hired as a writer. And I quickly realized that I spoke more than I wrote. And so we fast forward about a year, maybe a little less, they said, the powers that be said, anybody else have any ideas? And somebody mentioned podcast. It wasn't me, but I still, as the new guy, said, I'll do it. And the reason I said I would do it was because I really, really wanted attention. And they had a podcast previously. It may have been called RIMScast, but it was just 5 editors sitting around a microphone just talking about stuff. It had no format. It had no special guest. And the insight was great, but it wasn't well produced. And so I said, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it like a talk show. And they said, okay. And the powers that be gave me a modest budget. And I connected with a small production company up in Canada called Podfly, which I'm still with today. And we kind of hashed out a strategy. And the strategy was you got to stick to a frequency. Could be weekly, could be monthly, whatever you decide, but you got to stick to it. And I thought that was a really good way to keep me structured and disciplined. And so we kept to it. And with very minor exception, we've been weekly. You were episode 374, and that's as of January 22nd today. So we've stuck with it since September of 2018 when we started.
So it's a great point because most experts in this area say that consistency is key. If you want to have a presence, if you want to, attract followers, listeners, viewers, whatever, you have to have consistent content. That's why, all of our algorithms are constantly getting content from people that we follow. So why have you found that to be such an important, a point for the success of your podcast?
Well, it's everything you just said. I just didn't know it at the time. I just knew that I was following the advice of experts who were telling me you have to do this weekly. And when we launched, they said bank 2 or 3 episodes, push back the launch date, and then just go. And if you have that constant stream, especially in our case, LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is where our members really are, especially the passive members. And we wanted to enhance our presence. If you don't have that and you don't keep tagging RIMS, and it's not just about me, but tagging RIMS and the hashtag risk management and the guests themselves and the guest organizations or their companies, then if you don't do that, then you're missing out. And if you do it, then you're generating the awareness, and eventually you just get to the top of the feed. And while I don't claim to be Mr. Popular, I will say that the reputation has enhanced my own presence, and people know Rims through RIMScast just from me seeking out new guests and things like that. So it's a great tool. It is kind of like having an audio or video business card.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. So, RIMS has obviously been one of the foremost providers of content in this space
Oh yeah.
forever. I mean, probably, at least 50 or 60 years, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And for the most part, over the course of that time, the foremost way they have done so is through traditional means, right? Conferences, some webinars, some online content, certainly lots of written product.
Yes.
How has what you do just different from how is it different from the traditional means of communicating RIMS content in the past?
Great question. So I'm a member or an employee of the publications group still here at RIMS. And so I'm sort of an extension. I'm not a marketing person. And what I do is I also, as you may know, I host the webinars as well. So what I do is I try to extend the dialogue, whether it be through a white paper, a RIMS Risk Management magazine article, a webinar. I try to extend that dialogue through RIMScast, because no matter what you do, whether you're writing it or whether you're speaking it, you're never going to have enough time. You're never going to have enough space. Even in a digital platform, you're never going to have enough space. And the authors of the articles, for example, they always want to talk about stuff that they left out, maybe things that they really wanted to get a little bit more granular with. That's our chance to give them that extra spotlight and a chance to fill in the audience, because I always have the audience in mind. They want a little extra, even if they're going to come back to it a month later. They need the extra content, because maybe there's something that they wanted addressed that our show provides.
So, Justin, I host, as we mentioned, the SERMAPod, this podcast. I've also been
Sure.
the host of, I mean, speaking of like the early days of podcasting, I host a legal podcast called Legal Face Off. It's on WGN, which is, based here in Chicago, but a national organization, a broadcasting organization. And I started this, we're in our 11th year.
Yeah.
So we were early on too, but I always think about the guests in terms of what will be something that would interest them as well as the audience. So how much do you tailor your content on? Do you base it on the guest, or do you find a topic and then find the guest?
It's a mixed bag. It's some of it is based on the guest. The guest sometimes is, I'll make this up, but it does happen, one of our virtual workshop instructors who's been in the profession for decades. They've got a ton of knowledge, and we got to tap into that. And I'm just giving the audience, 40 minutes of their 40 years of experience, for example. Other times, I'll accept the occasional PR pitch. If I see something that's happening in the news, whether it be geopolitical risk or a supply chain issue, and I think that's how I found the expert from EcoVadis a couple of years
Mhm.
ago. There was a supply chain issue, and they had EcoVadis out there. I said, you know what? It's about time that we tackle that person, or that topic, not the person. And then other times, there are people that I seek out for very specific reasons. For example, every year RIMS has a new president, so we always want to hear what the new president is going to do for RIMS. There's people who are going to speak at Risk World, and if I can get the keynote, great. If I can get a high level speaker who's going to be doing a 1 hour session, that's the person I want. It really depends. And then sometimes, and you might do this too, sometimes it's based on the news, but sometimes there's an awareness month. Like this happens to be National Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And I've done that in January a few times because I feel like it's an important topic, and I just bring on a different guest, sometimes from a different viewpoint. Not to say that human trafficking is good, but from maybe the corporate defense side, that sort of thing. It's a great way to go about it if I don't just think of risk management, but just the personality, what's happening in the news. It's a cool way to balance it out.
Yeah, and as you know more than anyone, really, I mean, risk management is so broad and covers so many different aspects of every company, every organization that, you really don't have to limit yourself. All of these, so many topics that are in the news really lend themselves to risk management. So I'm sure that makes your job somewhat easier.
Yeah.
Not that it's easy, but it's probably, there's lots of content out there. We find the same thing in, sports and entertainment, risk management. There's so much out there that we could choose from. But when you started RIMScast, who did you think the audience would be, and then who has it turned out to be? Is there anything that surprised you about who's listening? Or
Yeah, it's a cool question. I started out just really thinking about the members, who some of whom I had met because I had been through my first Risk World at that point, which was in San Antonio. And so I had a chance, people were introducing me around. I had passed the 1 year mark, so I felt pretty stable in my job. And I was really thinking about the members that I had met and also the readers of Risk Management Magazine. And then because we publish through Libsyn, I started to see, you can't see who the people are who listen, but you can see where they are in the world from where they are listening and downloading. And I thought that was wild. And I hadn't even considered that when I launched the show. And when I saw that people from Argentina were listening, that kind of blew my mind. When I saw that people from countries that I hadn't heard of since middle school social studies classes, like Liechtenstein, I went, whoa, that's crazy. So it's cool. And then once we start at that time, also, not to go too far off on a tangent, but at that time, 2018-ish, our president was Robert Cartwright, who's a fantastic guy, still a good friend of mine. And we were really going global. And so we wanted to bring in all those international perspectives. So I had that in mind as well.
being huge in Liechtenstein is a goal of ours. So I'm a little envious, but risk could be a little bit technical. Let's face it, a little
Mm-hmm.
geeky. How
Yeah.
do you temper? How do you balance the need to provide really cutting edge content to really smart people in the space, but also be accessible and entertaining to people who maybe not are as advanced in their career in risk as others?
Well, I do my research most of the time. If it's somebody I know really, really well, I could kind of teeter a little bit. But most of the time, if it's somebody like, for example, we have James Lamb, who's considered the first chief risk officer who ever existed. I
Wow.
really went through his bio. I couldn't read all of his books. I didn't have enough time, but I went through and I wanted to, I would do the research. I'd see what's out there. Every once in a while, if time permitting, I'll listen to another show that they've done or some other articles that they've written just to get a grasp. And then, especially in the early days, I used to bounce ideas off of a lot of my coworkers. Probably the person I bounced ideas off of the most was Morgan O'Rourke, who's the new VP of publications, but he's been at RIMS for 20 plus years. So though he's not a risk manager, he knows it inside and out. And then it was my job, just like you're saying, to make it accessible, to make it fun. You don't want to do a dry podcast about the ISO 31000. Nobody wants to hear that. But then again, they also had to rein me back in because I would try to do comedy, and the Regis Philbin impression was already outdated in 2018, and it's even more outdated now. So
Anyway, I'm out of control.
yeah, I'm here on the SERMAPod with Rich Lenkov. SERMAPod. So they said, just don't do the Regis. And I just went ahead and did it anyway. And I think after the second or third time, they said, you got to stop or we're taking the show from you. All right. Okay. I'll stop.
That's amazing. That's like, I do a Regis that's Dana Carvey doing Regis.
You're
right?
doing that. Yeah.
Anyway, are you listening to this? I'm out of control.
Yeah. But as he got older, he slowed down a little bit and his voice dropped a little bit,
Got me going. You got to you got to yell as part of the Regis.
Well, yeah, you could hear my wife upstairs just going, oh God, shut up already.
That's incredible. So, was there a moment, that someone came up to you, maybe at Risk World, or you got some feedback that was like, "Oh, wow, this is actually resonating. People are actually listening. This is getting through to someone."
Yes, actually, it did, and funny, you were saying it. I don't think you meant to do the Regis right there, but you were doing the Regis inflection. Yeah, no, it happens a lot.
Once you start Regis, you can't stop.
You can't stop. I'm better because I'm going to get in trouble. No, in all sincerity, it was the biggest thrill. It still is that for an audio only podcast or something that is largely audio only, people have come up to me at our events and they say, or I'm at the
They're
buffet table or something.
starstruck. They're
They say,
I can't
no, they
believe
go,
who.
they go, oh my God, you're the RIMScast guy. And I go, yeah, and, that's me. And I do the voice, and I have the loveliest conversations with them. Some of them then later, just by talking to them, some of them come on the show, not just because they flatter me and stuff, but also because others are, for example, RIM CRMP holders. And I find that out and I go, okay, we have this RIM CRMP interview series. We would love for you to be on that, that sort of thing. People come up to me, they hear my voice and they recognize me and they go, oh my God, that's you. And most of the time it's always very flattering. And uh, our RIMS president for 2026, Manny Padilla, said some very nice things about the show during a collaboration week, an in-person event that RIMS staff had, and that was extremely touching. So, anytime I get a compliment, whether it's in person or online, it's very very gratifying.
So, I mean, I knew I was starstruck when I first met you, and I continue to be in awe.
Yeah,
So you're
I
audio only. So
yeah
I mean, obviously there's billions of dollars being spent on, video podcasting,
yeah
video blogs, whatever you want to call them. That is kind of one of the hottest areas of entertainment is video podcasting, right?
right.
We see all sorts of deals. Do you think that's next for Rimscast? And on the other end of the spectrum, speaking of, you do around 40 minutes, like there's a whole industry now of what they call micro dramas. I mean, literally 2 or 3 minute episodes. And that is like the next trend. You see this in Asia and it's coming here.
Yeah,
So talk to us about some of these emerging, trends in broadcasting and how you see them fitting in with what you do.
yeah. So we were in the process of starting a monthly video episode where it would be the same as the audio, only with video. My only concern about not it's not a concern when I, it's a risk management podcast. I'm fully aware of how sometimes this isn't always the uh, the most riveting topic, right? I don't want people also to be self-conscious about their appearance. I don't want them to worry that they have to do a presentation, that they need to show us a heat map. I don't want any of that. I want them to be able to talk freely and be themselves and as authentic as possible. Some of them are great on video, and that's why I record the video and I just hold on to it. But we're going to start doing a little bit more. We have RIMScast Canada that's going to come out
Hmm.
monthly, and that's going to be a video series. And we're going to do a little bit more on the weekly RIMScast show, and that'll just be we're going to take maybe monthly clips or a monthly episode and just put it out there. And then as far as the condensing it down, I haven't given it too much thought, but I feel like 30 to 40 minutes tops is the sweet spot for our show. You need that much time to really to zoom out, to zoom back in, and then to zoom out again.
So you mentioned, no, that's a great answer. You mentioned your preparation. I mean, how much do you rely on your preparation versus just letting things flow during the interview and treating it more almost like, a live broadcast? I mean, or is it a combination of the two?
It's a combination. I have a script of questions, usually about eight, and then I leave the space for the follow-ups. Because if it's too scripted, then it just sounds like I'm giving somebody something for them where they had to do homework and write their answers. They have a general idea of what I'm going to ask about, but they might have some nugget of wisdom that they've let drop, and then we just pick up on that. And if we go on a 5 minute tangent, that's okay as long as it's tied to risk management.
All right, we're going to move into a rapid fire. Are you ready
Rapid
for a
fire,
rapid fire? We've never done a rapid fire, but I feel like it'll be fun. So
rapid
we'll do a
fire.
rapid fire that will end with something about you personally. So rapid
Okay.
fire. So what's a mistake that you made early that you learned from in podcasting?
Not to put on the backup recorder.
Ah,
That was a very technological issue that I had because I was so amped up, I forgot to press a button. on my Piezo Rogue recorder, and I had to do a lot of digging. So,
That's a good one. We've
yeah.
all been there. In the 100 and I don't know, four we've done of the SERMAPod. One time I forgot to hit the record button literally because I
Yes.
was on a different device. And
Yep.
man, there's nothing worse than telling a guest who you just spent 25 minutes with, in my case, hey, that was awesome. Let's try it again.
Yeah, it happened. I did it on a webinar once. It was a live broadcast, so anybody who saw it live, great. And then and it was one of the best ones that we had done. It was about environmental risk. And then, I went back and, like, where's the video? Where's the video? I never pressed the button. So,
Yeah, it's rough. Well, thankfully it was only once. What about who's your dream guest? Is there someone, and maybe we could get them now that they'll be listening? Who's on your sort of Moby Dick list of people you want to get on that you haven't been able to?
my dream guest for risk management or dream guest generally?
Let's go with both. If you had anyone in the world you can invite to a risk management podcast, let's do that, and then tell us your risk dream guest.
Oh, so any podcast ever,
Any podcast ever, sure.
any podcast ever. If it were, yeah, I mean, I sort of had them. I'll do the one I haven't had. Henry Rollins. Henry
Wow.
Rollins would be for me the ultimate. I've met him a couple of times. I almost soiled myself both times. I may have actually soiled myself, and at least if I soil myself on the podcast, he won't know.
So, by the way, that sets the record for the word soiled myself in the
Soiled myself.
history of any of our podcasts, but that's okay.
Yes.
So, Black Flag, you're a Black Flag guy, it sounds like.
I'm actually more of a Rollins band and
Rollins.
Henry Rollins guy, but I love
Yeah.
Black Flag. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. All right.
And
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 then
then
what
for
about for
for
the
yeah, for our
RIMScast?
show, uh we've I'm I'm thinking out loud here. I'm okay, let's put it this way. I missed the guest that I would have loved. And it is kind of like a cop out answer. We had, I think the year before I was hired, Michael J. Fox was the keynote at Risk
Oh,
World.
wow.
And that would have been a flippin' mind blower. So
Now,
I'd go with him. And then as far as uh, there have been a couple of people who are in the risk space who do tremendous work who I got so close to getting them to commit. I don't want to say who they are because I don't want them to feel bad, but I was like so amped up when these people were ready. And there was one guy who worked for $1 billion philanthropic mission, and I was so excited not to talk money but just to talk about their mission, and it fell through, and so I'll leave it there.
wow. That that leaves me wanting more. So Michael
Yeah.
J. Fox. So I
Yeah.
gotta ask, since you have a Regis, do you have a Michael J. Fox in your bag of
Oh,
impressions? I
no,
mean,
no. And even if I did, I wouldn't do it. The PC police would come and get me.
oh,
I
but I mean, like golden era Michael J. Fox. You got to put your hand through here. Geez, Mallory, something like that.
Yeah,
Something
no,
either Mallory or Doc Brown, some kind of reference to
I don't have I used to try to do Doc Brown, oh, great Scott. But
Great
I
Scott,
could
Marty.
do that. I could do a Ray Romano if you really want one.
Well, of course, we want to hear that one.
Yeah. So I grew up like 2 towns away.
Oh my God, that's actually really good. That's
Oh, the word actually is the operative word there. Regis wasn't good, but the Raymond was good. He
Regis
actually
was-
did grow up 2 towns away in Lynbrook. I live in Oceanside, New York.
yeah.
So
That Ray is pretty good.
Yeah.
I was a mediocre stand-up in New York from 2006 to 2007. And I had my moments. I was never the best, but I wasn't the worst. And I used to perform at the Gotham Comedy Club. And if I would just suggest, if you don't mind my saying, to anybody out there who's listening who's considering starting a podcast, especially if you're going to do it for your organization, do stand up 3 times. Do stand up 3 times at the bringer shows where you have to bring your friends. And after the third time, if you don't like it, don't do it anymore if it's not paying off. But after that, you've accomplished a goal that most people are too afraid to do. And after that, you will have no more fear of public speaking. You definitely won't have a fear of hosting a podcast.
It's so funny that you say that because I have begun a side gig doing stand-up comedy over the last year and a half, and
Laughs with Lenkov?
it's not quite that, but my logic was always it was twofold. Number one, like the last time I picked a jury, I was thinking like if I could convince these people to like me, it's got to be way easier in a comedy club. Number one, number two. I speak at so many conferences to like huge audiences. I just spoke last week in New York at the Yale Club, and there was probably 215 people in the room.
Yeah.
And I started off with some jokes. And I figure I've been doing this for 30 years. If I can do that, man, I could convince seven drunks in, at 12:30 in a comedy club to laugh. So I started it. I've done Zanies here in Chicago a few times. A lot of fun, but you're right. And you actually answered my last question, which was going to be, what advice would you have to someone who's thinking about starting a podcast? Not that we
Yes.
want more competition, Justin. I mean, come on,
No.
there's enough damn podcasts, but you gave a great piece of advice, which is like, get out there and do it and put yourself out there and speak,
Yeah, but do it live first
Right.
and get
Yeah.
comfortable in your own skin. And if I could offer one other piece of
Yes,
advice,
please.
when it comes to the the business part of things, don't expect people to start pouring money into your show immediately just because you came out with a podcast. These things take time. You got to build your brand, you got to build your reputation, you got to build your audience, and then eventually you might be able to monetize it. But never have that as the goal, because at best you won't reach that goal for years.
Right.
You got to do it because you love it and because you want to get the message out first.
Absolutely. Great advice. We will end with a question we frequently asked of SERMAPod guests, but we have
Yep.
not done it lately, so I want to go back to it. So because we're a sports and entertainment organization, I want to know your favorite sports team
Mhm.
and your favorite movie of all time, and explain each of those choices.
My favorite movie of all time, or my favorite sports movie of all time?
Your favorite movie
Okay.
and your favorite sports team.
Okay. My favorite sports team, actually, I'm going to throw a little curveball at you, is the Brooklyn Cyclones, single A for the Mets.
Wow. Okay.
Because we that's the only games I go to, and I don't go to them frequently enough, but I have great memories there, being in Brooklyn with my grandfather, who's no longer with us, and my dad, who thankfully still is with us, and my kids. I think they like going to single A games, so I'm happy to take them out to Coney Island and do that. So Brooklyn
There you go.
Cyclones, yeah.
No $60 million a year contracts like former Cub Tucker just got
No,
in the single A. I get it. All right.
no.
What about your favorite movie of all time?
My favorite movie of all time, my number one movie, I guess it's got to be Spaceballs.
It's baseball. May the Schwartz be with you.
There's gonna be a Spaceballs too.
I know.
I'm cautiously optimistic. You know,
Yeah.
I
99-year-old Mel Brooks is still churning it out.
he's still doing it. He's gonna play Yogurt again. And
Yeah.
if there was ever a movie that I knew back and forth, it was Spaceballs. I used to play lottery numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I kept losing, so I stopped doing that. But there was that one, and I guess a close second. A close second would have been probably the Goonies or something like that.
Well,
More.
too bad the late great John Candy will not be in Spaceballs 2, but we will wish you the Schwartz. May the Schwartz be with you.
May the Schwartz be with you as well, my friend.
And
Laughs with Lenkov. That's got to be your show. I want to see it.
I'm gonna, when we hang up here, I'm going to give you a couple of my latest piece of material since you're a veteran, and
Okay.
run them by you. But we really appreciate it. Everyone, continue to listen to the RIMScast
Yep.
with our friend Justin Smulison and Risk World. Tell us a little bit about Risk World, and everyone should register. I know we will be there, and
Sure.
we will have a presence there, and we are always grateful to have a great event.
Yeah. Can I do a quick plug?
Of course.
Okay, well, first off, I just want to thank you again. You're on episode 374, which came out January 20th, 2026. I recommend everybody go listen to Rich there. And yeah, Risk World's going to be May 3rd through May 6th in Philadelphia. If you go to rims.org or rims.org/riskworld, you can register and get the advance rates now through February 28th. So it's always a great time. I know you've been there, and we got connected through a different RIMS event, and I can't wait to see you there and have a presence there. And usually we get 10,000 plus people at Risk World, so it's truly the largest gathering of risk professionals on the planet. That's why we're Risk World now.
Amazing. Justin, thank you so much for joining us on the SERMAPod, and we will see you soon.
Pleasure. Thank you.